Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to the Figure Skating Heart. Okay, today's episode is going to be a little bit different than anything I've done before. It's going to be about figure skating books. There's quite a few out there. I've read quite a few and I actually own quite a few that I've collected over the years. So I wanted to share with you some of my favorites, but particularly focus on my top 3 favorite figure skating books of all time. So let's dive right in. I have one right here. I'm not going to worry too much if these are still available because then I wouldn't be giving you my honest opinions on what my actual favorites are. So I don't know if you can actually buy this one anymore. In fact, I don't think you can. But probably in a used bookstore, which is where I found it many years ago. This is A Spectator's Guide to Figure Skating by Debbie Wilkes. And I'm sure you all know who Debbie Wilkes is, but she has a long history in Canadian figure skating, and she was, I can remember, one of my favorite broadcasters back in the day, and then she moved on to working with Skate Canada. So this book is, I mean, it's dated, but it still stands the test of time. Pretty much it's a reference book, and what it is divided up into like sort of the different basic elements of figure skating. So we have, you know, the basics, the jumps, the spins, and the para skating, the lifts and that sort of stuff. And it just talks about each jump, basically explains to you a little bit of like what to look for when you're watching, you know, because sometimes when you're watching figure skating, even if you've watched it for years, a jump can go so quickly you don't even know which jump it was. But this sort of gives you like a rundown of which edge it takes off of, what it looks like. It even has teensy-weensy little diagrams there. Yeah, so if you're not actually a figure skater then and never done those jumps, then your knowledge of them has to be purely because you studied them, not because you learned how to do them. So that's why I really love this book, and I still refer to it even to this day, even though I, you know, can recognize the jumps. I just like going over them, getting the nitty-gritty on each little jump and lift and spin and everything like that. So love this book. Okay, my next favorite book is, well, it's a classic. I'm sure most of you, anyone who loves figure skating probably has read it or probably owns it. I've got 2 copies of it, the hard cover and the soft cover, and it is My Sergei, A Love Story by Ekaterina Gordieva. You know, it's hard to even talk about these, but it's hard for me to even read these books, even though they're this book, even though it's my absolute favorite. Ekaterina Gordieva and Sergei Grinkov were my favorite pair team, and I specifically remember when I found out that, you know, Sergei had passed away. Sorry, it's just, you know, it was so heartbreaking, and it still is. And so, yeah, this book, Ekaterina writes, and she talks all about from when she was a kid and when she started skating with Sergei, and, you know, when they had their daughter, and it's amazing. It's beautiful, and, you know, she's an amazing woman, and she's gone on, and she, you know, is really brave and strong and has an amazing life now and everything like that. So it's very inspirational as well. You know, it's of course it's sad because Sergei was so young and so brilliant, and it's hard, but it's so worth the read, and it's so meaningful and special. So let me gather myself. Okay, so after that, my absolute favorite figure skating book of all time. And this, I feel like I should do a drum roll. This is not going to come as a surprise to any of you who watch any of these videos, or certainly anybody who knows me, because it's somebody that I rave about, that I love, and have loved forever. And yeah, it's Kurt Browning. It's Kurt Browning's memoir or autobiography called Forcing the Edge. And this copy that I'm holding in my hands is a little worse for wear because I have been reading this book and rereading it and reading it more times than I can count since I was for many, many, many years. And I still love it. I still love it to this day. It talks about, you know, how he got started in his childhood, and then takes you through the bulk of his amateur career. And, you know, it's got the little pictures in it and stuff like that. And it's amazing. It's Kurt wrapped up in a book. It's so funny. There are some stories that he shares that I still, every time I read them, are laugh out loud funny. They're just, the way he says them are really like, the way he explains them, you can just picture it, and it's so funny, and it just, I don't know, it shows you so much of who he is and talks so much about the figure skating world, and it's the best book. I love it so much. If you haven't read it, I checked on the chapter's website and you can't get it there anymore, but I'm sure you must be able to find it online somewhere. I mean, it must be easy to get a hold of. You can't have my copy. I still will be reading this for years to come because I love it so much. So yeah, that is my absolute #1 favorite book on figure skating. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about other categories. There's figure skating books aimed at children, and I have two. Well, I have one that I really love, and this one's not going to come as any surprise. Two, it's A is for Axel, A Figure Skating Alphabet, and it's by Kurt Browning, written by Kurt Browning. Shock, but it's really wonderful. I actually bought this for my son when he was a couple years old, just as a way to sort of introduce him, and it's got lovely pictures, and it goes through the alphabet, and each letter corresponds to something in figure skating. But what I like is on the side of the book, there's actually like a little write-up explaining, you know, in more detail, sort of like an explanation of different things that he talks about. So aimed, you know, as they get older, they can sort of learn more. But in the beginning, it's wonderful just to look at the pictures and read the little figure skating alphabet. And the other book that I wanted to talk about, and I say it's aimed at children, and I'm not really sure if it is. Actually, these two children's books sort of correspond to my top 2 favorite figure skating books for adults. But it's A Letter for Daria by Ekaterina Gordieva again. This is an unusual book. I never knew that it existed, and then I found it online. And it's a short little one with pictures and large font. It's sort of written like a letter to her daughter when her daughter's quite young. And so it's really interesting to read, you know, just to sort of hear what she says and how she explains things. But I find it interesting now. It's a really good little almost chapter book to read to like a young to medium-aged child would find it pretty interesting. It's sort of like it's something that I plan on sharing at some point with my son, and I think it's really special. So yeah, I love those ones. The other type of figure skating book I wanted to mention, which is not in my top 3, but certainly I really enjoy having it, and it's worth a look at, is sort of like an encyclopedia of figure skating, or like a real history reference book. This is the one that I chose. It's Figure Skating: A History by James R. Hines. And I haven't read this cover to cover, but I sort of have it as a reference. It delves a lot into the history of figure skating, and it's nice to just sort of have on your shelf. It's almost laid out like a textbook in a way, which is interesting. And you know, it's just a nice reference to have. And I like, you know, when you love figure skating as much as I do, it's nice to know all about the history as well, and all about the skaters that came long, you know, before my time that I've only ever heard about. It's nice to sort of read about in something like this. So yeah, there's lots of figure skating books out there. There's tons of ones that I haven't mentioned. I've read the Johnny Weir memoir. That's really, let's call it fabulous, because I think that's a word he says a lot in his book. It's funny, it's cheeky, it's really interesting. Actually, there's some parts of it that I can still remember vividly, just the way he describes them. It kind of stick with you, and I find that's the best. That's sort of, you know, a book's good if you can remember it, like after you've read it a year later, certain sections. So yeah, there's lots of different types of figure skating books out there. I remember when I was much younger, in junior high and stuff like that, they used to have this book club, not book club, it was like, they'd give you this little, okay, this is probably really dating me, but every month you could order books from this little catalog, or, not catalog, paper? I can't remember what it's called. You get it, and you make a little book order, and they used to have figure skating books in there, where it was just profiling the different stars of the day, and sort of had their picture on the back, kind of their stats. So I used to pour over stuff like that, and still have them in my collections. I always wish that there was more, and I tend to check every once in a blue moon. I'll check and see if there are any figure skating fiction books for adults. There's not really very many. There's not really any. I think I came across 1 or 2, but they weren't really what I was looking for. But I would love that if there was an adult fiction book, maybe even a romance fiction type thing, that sort of took place in the world of figure skating. I think that would be awesome. Nothing like that so far, but I keep hoping that maybe I'll come across one someday. And so I think that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this. It's a little bit different, but I kind of wanted to share with you some of the things I love, and hopefully this has inspired you. And if anybody watches this and there's a figure skating book that you love, let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to check it out. Okay, bye. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Make sure my hair doesn't look funny. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I've decided, God, stop saying up. Hi, hi, and welcome to the, hi. Hi, I'm Megan and Hi, I'm Megan and welcome. Hello.